We kick it off with the Yankees. If they've now lost 4 in a row, Maggie, and 6-4, to the Angels, good last night out there in, the greater Anaheim area. And, there's a lot to get into. Number one, the double plays have returned, ground into 5, 1 for 10 with runners in scoring position. On the whole, you look at the lack of flexibility when you look at the lineup. We'll get into that as well with Stanton locked into that DH spot. But I guess what bothers me most about the last 2 games against the Angels is kind of the approach that the Yankees have had in this series.
Yeah.
And you lose the back 2 games against the A's. All right, well, Oakland's in a battle for a wild card spot, right? So, they're a pretty good baseball team, right? It's going to happen. You're not going to win every single game.
You've just won 13 in a row.
You just had won 13 in a row.
That is
going to happen. But you go into this series, right? You have Kluber going Monday night, where, throws, 3 no-hit innings to begin it, and then that 4th inning, right, the wheels come off, gives up the grand slam, the Yankees end up losing that game. And we can look at the lack of offense. Well, the Yankees in that game scored 7 runs, right? They lose that game 8-7. Then you look at the game last night with Jameson Taillon, who soured a little bit last couple of starts for Taillon, where, previous 9-10 starts, statistically speaking, he was one of the better pitchers in all the American League. That's how Jameson Taillon had turned the corner. Well, you look at last night, well, you know what? You could have been helped out by the manager a little bit as well if you're Aaron Boone, looking at Taillon after he gives up the single, then the ringing double, right? I understand then he gets the 2 ground ball outs, and, then you get the intentional walk, and then you get the big 2-out hit before that game gets kind of wonky and out of control there, where the Angels are able to put up a crooked number because they have the big 2-out, 2 RBI single there that scores 2 runs, that makes it a 5-2 game. Yep. If you're Aaron Boone, have a little bit more of a touch and a feel, which we've talked about before, but really I think it's kind of a really general approach that the Yankees have had these last 2 games and I get the offense has not been there. Last night it wasn't. Game 1, it was. It wasn't the last 2 games against the Oakland Athletics, and you're going to look bad when you're as bad as they were last night with runners in scoring position, 1 for 10 as a team. It's not the greatest lineup they can roll out there. It's also a case where they're playing a kind of a wait-and-see approach with both their starters. Kluber, you should have had a quick hook on Monday night with Kluber. He didn't look all that impressive down the minor leagues in that rehab start. I don't care that he threw 3 no-hit innings. That's a scenario where, he's not properly stretched out. You got to have someone ready to go the minute that he's in a little bit of trouble. They didn't do that. And then last night with Jameson Taillon, I don't think Boone helped out his starter either.
No, not at all. To me, this all looks like the Yankees see what's coming. Right after Thursday's off day is a stretch where they start 20 in a row. And that is daunting, Moose, in September, and considering how they feel about this team and how much rest everybody needs to get and getting guys off their feet and how that is so front of mind and top of mind, making sure they don't want to overextend their bullpen because you see what's coming down the road here, which is 20 in a row. And I think they are managing, and Aaron Boone managed this series so far for that 20 in a row. It's not, I'm going to say managing scared. It's not that. It's just managing with one eye on this gauntlet that's going to happen. Because, so today, for example, that you have Garrett Cole on the mound. So Higashioka's got to be behind the plate. So what does that do? Does Gary get a full day off? He smoked a home run last night. Does he DH? If so, then Voit can't DH. You have to have Stanton, Judge, and Gallo at least to start in your outfield. So then after a day off, that's not enough, to give Giancarlo Stanton. Is that going to be enough to give him time off his feet? He's DH 3 games in a row. All the things that we loved about this Yankee team in the 13 straight, the versatility, stealing bases, lifting the ball in the air so they weren't hitting into double plays, heady plays, good, going to the bullpen at the right time, bullpen pitching really well. All these things, it's like they just got sucked out of the Yankees. They're not stealing bases anymore. Tyler Wade has appeared in 3 games on this road trip. They sucked everything out of the different way that the Yankees were playing. And it's even extended to guys like Joey Gallo, who had hit into 9 double plays in his career before he got to the Yankees and now is hitting 2 or whatever in the past couple of days. It is contagious in a bad way. And it's all the things that people disliked about the Yankees and all the things that were wrong about the Yankees that have now come back in this series. And I have to believe it's because they are only looking ahead to that 20 in a row. And I think they see that as this gauntlet, which it is. It is. They're not wrong, but they are managing this series for that stretch. And you might have sacrificed a couple games here.
Yeah, but I hate it. Can I say I hate it? I mean, I just don't love the approach.
You're allowed to hate it.
And you're probably right about that when you look at, starting after, the off day tomorrow. I think their next off day is September 23rd. So I mean, you're going for an extreme amount of stretch of games and playing consecutive games, and maybe you're building around it. But here, Maggie, Cole is going tonight.
Yeah, your bullpen should be all right.
Well, that's
that
the
should
problem,
not be an
right?
issue today.
I mean, Chad
and
Green
then you have an off day.
Chad Green and Jonathan Loáisiga has not made an appearance in the series, right? We saw him in that last game against the Oakland Athletics, right? Mm-hmm. So they've not made an appearance in the series, right? You've got, Peralta, Lucas Litke, Holmes. Those are the guys that you're going to right now. So it's not like you're going to your stable of relievers and power arms here. And the bullpen was a disaster in game one against the Angels. And I get sometimes, because you see it in the old adage is, in Major League Baseball, day game after a night game, where sometimes we're going to sacrifice one game because it's going to set us up for the next 7, 8, 10 days and the stretch.
Schedule losses.
Right. You might lose the battle, but ultimately we're trying to win the war. I get all that to an extent, but you also, the American League East now is gone, right? It is gone. I mean, that is, unless the Tampa Bay Rays have one of the worst Septembers that we've ever seen, the American League East is gone.
Well, also, the Yankees would have to go on this crazy run, but they just went on this crazy run.
Correct. So
I don't think another one of those is coming.
You're focused in on the wild card and getting this team set for the wild card. But part of the reason why the American League East is gone is that you've lost 4 in a row, right? And you had that 13-game winning streak, and at some point in time you're going to lose a game. I get it. I just don't love the approach of the last 2 games, the way that they've handled it, whether it be less to an extent the lineup, more of a case of when I look at handling of this staff, a little bit too much confidence in Corey Kluber, first start off. And then you look at Tyone last night. Jameson Tyone didn't even get through 5 innings of work, and he threw 92 pitches.
Yeah.
Like, we were joking around it before the show, Maggie. Tyone's the type of guy, either he can be unbelievably good or he can be really, really bad. We've seen both of them, right? We've seen both of them. And we've also seen a guy that's barely been able to get through 3 innings of work earlier on in the regular season. Tyone last night, once you start to get that first sign of trouble, don't allow it to completely implode before you get him out of the game.
Yeah, I think that there was a moment, and because he had earned it, how he pitched, where you're like, wow, the Yankees do have a number 2 starter. Not sure what Corey Kluber would be like when he came back, but who would start the second game of a playoff series? The Yankees get through the wild card game, obviously, just assuming there. Then it could be Jameson Tyone. He had separated himself, and that's not an affront to Jordan Montgomery, who's also pitched really well. But it looked like Tyone had kind of emerged as that guy who could pitch and be your number 2 starter. And now the last 2 have been pretty bad here. So you're hoping he's not, dealing with some fatigue. Anytime he pitches poorly, got to bring up the fact that he's coming off of an injury, 2 years basically lost with injury. And so that always plays into it when you get into this time of year, like how many innings can this guy possibly put on his arm? But hopefully he'll be there at the end. I just wonder, the Yankees are going to tell you that they're going for the American League East because they kind of have to say that, but they're not. They're not. They're going to live in the wild card game. They're going to hopefully be hosting that wild card game. And if it's going to be Garrett Cole against Chris Sale, man, I mean, that's must-see TV, no doubt about that, but I don't know how great you feel. Unfortunately, Red Sox are dealing with a little bit of a COVID outbreak now, but if Sale is back and looking nasty, I mean, that's big. That's huge for the Red Sox, but they are going to live in that wild card game. And, it's not just because of how they've managed this series, because, again, you can understand it with 20 games coming up in a row, but they've been doing this kind of stuff all season. They've been doing this kind of thing all season. And what is a bummer about it now is you actually have your best lineup available and you're not using it. You have your best lineup available and you're choosing not to use it because you're worried about these 20 games in a row. That's frustrating.
Yeah, it is. And I also, Maggie, and I get it, but I think they have a fear of God of Stanton getting hurt, right?
Clearly.
And he's been unbelievable, but if they're going to push him out there, too much in the outfield, the wear and tear. You look at the ground ball that he hit, the double play ground ball to begin this Angel series, right?
Yeah.
Top half of the first inning, Rizzo on third base, man on first.
The first of 2 double plays he hit in.
Correct, right. So he hits that ground ball double play. He barely runs up the first base line.
You think something's wrong?
No, I'm not. I just think it's a case of that's what Stanton's going to do, right? Because he wants to stay healthy. He's not going to jet up the first base line because he doesn't want to suffer any kind of
head first slide into
right,
first.
that is not going to be Stanton, but that shows you where it is. So I think as a Yankee fan, I'll take the positives of Stanton hitting the one into the rocks on Monday night, right? With the negative of maybe him having to kind of run at 60% up the first base line and realizing he's not going to beat out that double play ground ball, but also with the understanding the Yankees, looking at those 20 games, because I think they would have handled this series, the first 2 games of this series, a lot differently if they didn't have that stretch that's facing them.
I hope so.
As daunting as they are. Yeah, right, exactly right. But I also have the, look at Stanton as an outfielder and say, okay, well, he's still going to get a ton of time at DH. The flexibility that we gave the Yankees in this lineup and Boone for being creative with the lineup. Yes, they're not rolling their best lineup out there, but you have an understanding why, because they don't want to have Stanton go down to some sort of injury.
No, I get it. You want him to be healthy. The only thing is all the other stuff is stopped. One of the cool things and one of the things the Yankees were able to do to cut down on double plays during their winning streak and grounding into double plays is they actually had guys stealing second to take away the double play threat. All that stuff that we praise them for, it's just gone now over the last couple games. It's just been gone. I saw this a lot on Twitter last night, and I have to agree. It looked like the old Yankees. Old Yankees from like earlier this season, pre-trade deadline Yankees, where they just seem kind of one-dimensional. And, it's a shame because I know this Yankee team is obviously capable of so much more. But again, we'll see what happens in the 20 games. They're definitely going to be going for the wild card, and they'll have to, hopefully host that wild card game. It's just frustrating when they could be better.
Well, right.
They could be better.
And they could be better. And you also know the very fact of, you get into that one-game wild card, and if it's the Boston Red Sox and it's Chris Sale, right? Then the trickle-down effect of, okay, so we both agree the American League East is gone. I think any self-respecting Yankee fan waking up on this Wednesday is looking at it and say, the Rays are gone. All right, well, then the trickle-down effect is, okay, if I get past Sale and the Red Sox, then what does that rotation look like in that divisional round of the series if you get past that? Because you're going to use Garrett Cole against Sale in that game, and it would be a burn for either if the Red Sox advance or the Yankees advance. But then you get into, okay, well, then you're going to need Tyone to find himself. You're going to need potentially a Kluber. What is Jordan Montgomery to this team? Domingo Germán. We've talked about Luis Severino, although that seems more aspirational than realistic. But what does this rotation look like? Is this team set up ultimately for success come October? The other thing to keep an eye on, and Maggie's a really good athlete, and you were talking about the story in The Athletic. Did Lindsay Adler write about Joey Gallo?
Yes.
Yes, right? So Joey Gallo, since the All-Star break, is hitting 130. I mean, Joey...
You can't look at the average with him.
His on-base percentage is at 27%. So, I mean, we're
still drawing a lot of walks.
I know, I get it. And I understand the month of August for the Yankees, he had 5 home runs, and he's an all-or-nothing guy.
Yeah.
And I get the fact that he's a really good defensive outfielder, right? But, Rizzo has had these moments, and he hit the long home run last night, and we know how good he is defensively. And he was even scuffling along a little bit after he came off that COVID IL stint, right? He was not really doing much offensively, and he easily could have hit a home run in the first game of this series, a ball that went, barely hooked foul down the right field line, but ended up hitting one last night. Gallo is right now up at the plate. And it's not just with the Yankees. It goes back even before the Yankees acquired him with the Rangers. And I get his average right now is at 203. But, I mean, he's hitting a $130 since the All-Star break. He hit 165, I believe it was, in the month of August with the Yankees.
It looks – this is the Joey Gallo experience, though. And his eye is so good, though. Like, he – will strike out, but he strikes out on strikes. I'm going to sound like I'm, caping for this guy or whatever, but I feel like I kind of understand what people see in him in terms of at the plate, like he gets it. And he even said in this piece, and you're right, Lindsay did a great job. He knows that if you look at traditional baseball metrics, like you're not going to get it with Gallo.
Right.
Like his average is never going to be good.
The special quality of Joey Gallo.
You got to get on the peripherals here, or you got to at least understand that the guy, even though he strikes out a lot, he does draw a ton of walks. He gets on base a lot. Career-wise, he gets on base a lot. He's got a great eye. And if he's going to be striking out, it's going to be on strikes. He's not going to swing a junk like Stanton does at times.
No, I gave him too much credit. 156 in the month of August. 48 strikeouts, 23 walks. On-base percentage about 31%. 27% since the All-Star break.
Listen, you gotta dive into the numbers to understand the magic. Are you regretting the trade?
No. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I think he's got to get going here a little bit. I mean, and I get he is what he is as a player, and I understand he's an on-base guy, but even the on-base percentage is taking a little bit of a hit here. It's been a lot of swings and misses, and offensively. Like, it's one thing to deal with 206, 208, 210, 215 and kind of excuse it away. Like, we've given Gary Sanchez a lot of credit for revitalizing himself. He hit a home run last night. You look at Gary Sanchez's average. I mean, 20 years ago, guys would be like, how the hell is he in the starting lineup?
Yeah, no, Gary's magic was never in the average.
Right.
Last night was his first home run since July,
so
whatever,
Gallo's
19.
numbers are, his magic is not in the average, but his average is getting really bad.
What does it say about the Yankees that he's still a massive upgrade in left field over what you were putting out there
Says a lot.
earlier this year?
Yeah, says a lot. He's a good defensive outfielder. He's a really good defensive outfielder. 10-18. Moose and Maggie with you. 877-337-6666. That is the number to call. That is the number to text. We get it going a little Yankees baseball. We'll get into the Mets, get into some NFL news around the Jets and the Giants as well. Plenty to chat about. Out to lunch coming your way at noon hour. We're undefeated this week in our pick of the day, too. Yankees, Angels last night. Good to us.
Yeah,
over
hit
9.5. Sitting at 9.5, we got 10. I'm getting texts from Dove around 12:30 last night. What am I rooting for? Runs or the Yankees win? I'm rooting for the Yankees to win the game.
Look at that, Dove
You know
going
what?
all in on the pick of the day.
But they lost, and we won.
Listen,
So
you can't have it
everybody
all,
won.
Moose.
No, you can't have it all. Well,
Yesterday was one of those days, though, like a New York sports day, that I felt like just the hits kept coming. It started like around 5 o'clock, 5:30 when that first Mets game was wrapping up, about 5.
Yeah.
And then it was just like, boom, into the second game, boom, into the Yankee game. And that was listen, it was another like close Yankee game that they had no business losing.
No, easily could have won it. But yeah, it was a very, very entertaining Tuesday in the New York sports scene. Moose and Maggie with you. Want to hear from you. Gave you the number to text as well. Hit us up on Twitter at M&M WFAN.